Well, welcome back, everybody. There are those leaders that we all know who know technology, those leaders who know people. But every now and again, someone comes along who masterfully brings both together. Today's guest, very excited, Shelia Anderson is one of those rare and special leaders. Shelia is a four-time CIO. She's a CIO Hall of Fame inductee. I was actually there when she got inducted, very special celebration. And she's one of the most widely admired executives in our profession. Sheila has built a career defined by transformation, humility, resilience, and a deep commitment to developing others. She has the head for complexity, she's got the heart for people, and she's got the spine for those hard moments. And because Sheila is far too humbled ever to make that case herself, I'm bringing the courtroom to the podcast today. Yes, you heard me right. I'll be the prosecuting attorney, and throughout the episode, I'll be calling on some expert witnesses. These are former peers, bosses, rising leaders, people who have been alongside her to help me present the evidence. This, of course, are our special mystery questioners. By the end of the conversation, I think you'll agree the verdict is clear. So let's bring Sheila in. Sheila, it's so good to have you. And on behalf of our entire Tech Whispers community, welcome to the show. And I want to thank you for allowing me to, as you know, I've been teasing you about this, to prosecute your case in front of peers, colleagues, friends, and family. So, this is bigger than the O.J. Simpson trial, Sheila. So, welcome.
Well, I don't know about that, Dan, but I do appreciate being here and sharing some of my story and some of my learnings across my journey and my career. So, super excited to have the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, let's dig in. We've got a lot of room to cover here. And, given all of our past collaborations, given my preparation for today, there are things that stand out on the journey. You've had really, I think, two distinct careers. You've had that first chapter where you were client facing, you were externally focused, right? You had those roles, you carried a P&L, focused on business outcomes, really interesting role there. Tell us about those early days, maybe how that shaped your thinking and how it helped you to be the leader you are today. I see the football there behind you, the Hall of Fame CIO that you are today.
Yes, thank you. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I think there's common things that we share there. Thank you for the question. Actually, in the early part of my career, I came out of college at a time also of major disruption. I started out my career during the blowing up of this little thing called the WWW. Actually, the year that I came out of university, the World Wide Web actually started blowing up exponentially. So I came out of the university level with a certain rote training, and literally within a few months after starting my role, everything that I knew changed. And so the focus on that was really for me to think about how do I be one of those people who can be a chameleon and reinvent myself as things change. So that was probably my earliest learning, is that disruption is here to stay. If you think back then, it was the internet, it was new things, new ways of working, new technologies, changing how businesses think. Some jobs went away, new jobs came, and other jobs were augmenting. Doesn't that sound familiar with where we are today with what? All
Wow.
Things AI and agentic AI. So when I look at the parallels on what I like to call the bookends of my career when I started, and now I like to call this in my last 25, I'm focusing on the part of my career that's more toward the end. And yet both of those bookends have very common things. And if you think about the internet disrupting the landscape today, AI is doing the same thing. So the biggest takeaway for me in this is that one of the key tenets of an enduring career, I know for me, has been to absolutely focus on continuous learning and being flexible and adaptable to change. I started out as a consultant, then I moved inside of a company, harnessing my engineering skills in the beginning and then moving into leadership later. Having started my career in that time of significant transformation, I learned to be much more consultative and asking questions and understanding the value to the business. And those are things that I leverage even today as a CIO.
That's fantastic. And, I think of, gosh, I said O.J. Simpson, you said World Wide Web. I think we're dating ourselves maybe a little bit.
Yes, I am. I am that old. And one of the things I love to tell my teams is, yes, I was around at the start of the internet. And yes, I am that old. So absolutely.
Well, let's go into the other bookend, the chapter two, right? Leading enterprise scale transformations. CIO at some amazing companies. USAA, you and I both love that company. Liberty Mutual, such a great run there. Aflac, right? And now Unum. And so, you know, I'm not sure exactly the vision of the 22-year-old version or the 22-year-old Shelia Anderson coming out of Louisiana Tech, engineering degree, right? If I could,
Yes, yes, computer
right?
science engineering. Mhm.
So when did you decide I'm going to be a CIO? Like how'd that transition materialize?
It's kind of interesting because at the time, so I'll take you way back even before college. I'm actually from a very small town in South Louisiana where I really didn't have any significant exposure whatsoever to technology or to female role models in that seat that could envision following in their footsteps. It wasn't even something that I would even comprehend at the time. I knew that I loved problem solving. And so I chose computer science engineering. When I was talking with my dad, I said, well, I need to choose a job, something that I know I'll have a great job, earning a great income coming out, and I love problem solving. So I chose that at a time when few women were choosing engineering as a discipline. And unfortunately, those numbers, if you fast forward to today, they really haven't increased substantially. So we're kind of still at a place where women aren't really running fast to this field. And I would say run as fast as you can because there's a huge amount of need and it's been a wonderful career. And my path, as many others, hasn't really been linear. I would see it as a series of many stretch opportunities or moments of raising my hand that shifted my focus from, for example, mastery of technology and engineering leadership and skills to really focusing on as a executive business outcomes, and then ultimately combining both the technology and engineering along with that business experience to really focus in on that executive leadership role. So I really evolved from early in my career being known as one who focused on execution. You leverage those engineering skills as you're coming up, and then leveraging those also to then learn to leverage and focus on business outcomes, explaining technology in terms that your business partners can understand and relate to, tying it in with business outcomes, with whether it be revenue improvement, productivity improvement, expense management, managing risk when you're talking to your board. Those are all things that when you start being able to tell that story, you're being seen as an executive leader at that time. So I'm super grateful for this phase of my career that I'm in now. I look at my career and I like to call it the three M&Ms of my career. The early one is mastery of purpose or mastery of skill. The second phase of your career is really focused on mentoring and bringing others along. And then the third phase that I feel like I'm in now is really when I think about that, how do I really make a difference? So, what's the legacy that I want to leave as an executive leader? And so that's just something that's really meaningful to me. And some of the most enjoyable moments for me right now are really related to those mentoring conversations and ultimately seeing individuals that have worked with me or that I've been able to mentor see their full potential by moving on and moving into more senior level roles and leading and driving value in other companies.
I I love M&Ms, by the way, but those are really cool, right?
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
chapters and
Yes.
um, one of your fun facts. We've been at dinners before, and I always like to ask people to share a fun fact. Talk about your early days as an entrepreneur, how you had an income at a young age with your special talents in music.
Yeah. So, being in the South, there weren't a lot of great opportunities for young people to actually earn income. So, I am a musician. I play piano and I play concert piano from a very, very young age. So, I quickly learned the value of a dollar because I actually had a early job working in a grocery store, and I won't even tell you it was way below $5 an hour was the minimum wage at the time. So I quickly pivoted and said, how can I leverage this skill in music? And local churches actually sought out pianists on the weekends and they didn't need full-time help. So I actually would go and make $50 playing for children's choirs at these small community rural churches. And actually, it was a little investment of time and a lot more return on my investment. So that's what I did.
Yeah, so good. You know, we have people on boards who tune in. We have executives who tune in. We have early in career people, even folks pre-career, right? So I want to go back to your early days, computer science. You didn't choose an easy major. You took at a time when there probably weren't many women in that field. I mean, you were dean's list, you were outstanding senior engineer, honor societies, leadership roles. Um, Talk about that experience, what it taught you early on about discipline and building confidence and grit. Showing up with excellence. Do you have any thoughts on that? Just, I mean, I was a couple minutes ago, but
I do. And I'll kind of, as I think through that, I think through those, discipline is absolutely something. It taught me the importance of showing up strongly, especially being from the South. I had to learn that and unlearn a lot of things, honestly, to learn how to show up strong and to be confident in that. Making the most of your seat at the table is important. You have to be prepared to make those discussions meaningful, to ask thoughtful questions, help drive conversations forward. How you think, how you execute. I think even how you treat others, that's something that's really close to my heart is and helping and how you manage and commit matters. And then the other one on the confidence, that's absolutely taught me more than anything that you do not need to be ready to have confidence. You listen, you act, you lean in, and then you're going to expand your confidence as you take on those stretch opportunities that I talked about. I was always one to raise my hand, and half the time I was 50% skilled to do what I was doing, but I developed it along the way. So don't be afraid of failing because you're going to build confidence through overcoming some of those failures as well. And then grit is something, wow, for me, that's something it's taught me that setbacks are, it's really more of a detour than anything. You just have to be aware enough to know that you can learn and pivot early enough to manage any negative outcomes. So I'm always thinking through what's the worst thing that can happen if this goes wrong? And then how do I pivot around that? So grit, I think, is just one of those things that you lean into hard when you may not know 100% of what you need to know. And you know that you need to be leaning on that to be resilient. And then excellence, you talked about excellence. Uh, to me, when you think about excellence today, it's probably defined differently today than it was even a year ago or definitely 10 years ago. When I think about earlier days, technical mastery may have been the currency for a CIO or a CIDO. Now, to me, where we're at now, especially with some of the emerging capabilities in AI, it's business fluency, how you influence, how you tie in telling that story to drive value in your business and strategic visioning to be able to lead your business into the future in the middle of all this disruptive change. So I see a lot of the balancing factor for us in these types of roles, and any executive role really is going to be managing between a lot of that, whether you call it legacy or existing business processes, when the invent of all of this disruption is coming, it's not necessarily going to be about simply iterating and blending it in. It's going to be possibly really disrupting your business models and thinking differently and new.
I love that. Speaking of excellence, I know these topics probably make you uncomfortable just because of who you are. But the excellence in our industry is recognized through the Hall of Fame, the CL Hall of Fame program. And I was there when you were inducted last August. It was really special. Take us back to that night, that experience. I mean, you don't do this work for the accolades and the awards, but
No.
that was pretty darn special.
It was really special. For me, the CIO 100 Hall of Fame recognition is probably one of the most meaningful honors in the industry. And it's really because you're recognized by your peers in the industry who've all achieved significance on their own with their teams and with their companies. So it's really meaningful because they're actually the ones um, evaluating who wins those awards each year. More than anything, I think I've had the opportunity to work with several different industry leading companies, as you mentioned previously. And along with that, more than anything, I've worked with amazing leaders and amazing teams, and I've learned so much from each of those. I've been honored to work with them, learn from them, lead throughout my career. So getting this recognition is really a little bit of the tip of the iceberg. It's just a culmination of all the experience and all the amazing people that I feel, yes, I've poured into them, but I've learned even more in what they've invested back into me. And technology and solving these business challenges and opportunities is really a team sport. It's how I
I,
look at it. So it shows that as a leader, you've shown up as a partner with your business. You've led through probably multiple areas of technology. If you think all the way back to early 1991 when I started and to now, yes, a lot of technology and business change. You've navigated tons of different strategic cycles in business, and you've achieved some significant outcomes. For that night specifically, it was an amazing night. I had an opportunity to spend with colleagues such as you, Dan, who is also, by the way, the first non-CIO to be also recognized as a CIO Hall of Fame winner. So for me, that was really special just to kind of sit in the same, share that with you that night as well.
Thank you very much. We both have our David Holloway signed football, right, over
Yes,
our
we do
shoulders,
right
and
here.
Super Bowl winner, master of ceremonies there. So yeah, thank you for noting that. But yeah, really great evening and small community, right, and really special. You mentioned you always deflect your success to other people, and including the Hall of Fame, and people have been part of that journey. I've got a number of those folks teed up, and I'm going to call them expert witnesses. Okay, we're going to prosecute your case starting right now, Sheila. All right, so get ready.
Wonderful.
And
Okay.
so you're gonna identify this voice right away. But here's our first one. Let's play the audio, and where court is now started.
Hi there, Sheila. As one of the strongest leaders on my executive team for many years, Sheila brought sharp judgment, a steady hand, and the ability to cut through complexity when it mattered most. Sheila was the kind of leader who stood firmly with her team no matter how tough things got. Even when situations went sideways, she never deflected. She stepped up, took responsibility, and supported her team through every challenge. Her steadiness and loyalty were a foundation the whole group could rely on. My question, Sheila, when you think back on those challenging moments, what guided your approach to taking responsibility and standing by your team, even when things were at their toughest?
Who's
Oh, I
that,
love
Sheila?
that. That is my Mr. James McGlennon from Liberty Mutual. Fantastic, innovative leader. I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to be a part of that leadership team. I actually managed a very large organization focused on shared services and modernizing for the first time ever, moving to a consolidated global approach for many of these systems. So it was a tough, tough implementation approach across 27 countries globally for the first time, really integrating core platform systems, people, process, and technology. And not only that, but one of the challenges that we had was focusing on the global nature of that, many languages, many cultures. So having the team focused and leaning into what was kind of tough change. It was one of the biggest changes that they had at the time. I really leaned into creating a great place to work, supporting the team, making sure that the team had a clear vision of what we were working on as an organization. And it's kind of interesting because when these types of things don't go perfectly, and what James is referring to, of course, this was the first time they had ever integrated to a single global data platform. Of course, we had a little bit of glitch as it went into production. And more than anything, I was very transparent in voicing that to the whole company for the first time and helping them to understand this is not an extremely negative. The fact that we've achieved what we've achieved, and it wasn't a system down or anything like that. It was just we had some data that did not migrate perfectly. So it was really helping the team to see transparency above all things when you have those types of challenges, and keeping them focused and energized behind the goal and the mission that we had to achieve. And we did achieve it. And that actual implementation won one of the, I believe, one of the awards for the CIO recognition as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, thank you, James McGlennon. People who know James just know he's busy in the next chapter, and they're like, "How did you get James?" I'm like,
Yes.
he was so happy to do this for you, and he was on it like, when do you need it? Like, and
Oh,
so appreciate him very much.
yes, absolutely.
Well, I've got another star witness here, Sheila. So your work's not done yet, and so this person knows you through a couple of pretty interesting and unique lenses. So let's listen in.
Sheila, when we overlapped at Liberty, it was clear to me even at that time that you had the instincts, energy, and empathy to lead at the enterprise level. What's been inspiring for me now, sitting on the Unum board and seeing you in action, is watching the same qualities come to life at an even larger stage. So both of us found our biggest opportunities actually after leaving the company we were at. You went to Aflac and now Unum, and I went to Travelers. How do you recognize when growth means stepping into a new environment? And how do you leave well, honoring where you've been while reaching for what's next?
That's a great question. I think growth shows up in a lot of different ways. And for me, when I'm with any company, I always look at what am I trying to achieve and have I achieved the goals that I've set out and been asked to deliver and commit to. So that's always the first thing. And then, of course, when you feel like you're at the point where you've mastered that, you've achieved that, for me, when opportunity knocks, those are the points that I've said, what's the next thing that I'm going to be able to bring to a company, or even skill building for myself, for example. So you have to pay attention to those signals. And it's usually the invitation to step into a new environment. And I know even coming here to this role at Unum, for example, I really wanted the opportunity to be a part of a team that was really leaning into leveraging innovation and technology and investing in that to drive outcomes and to really focus on driving results for your business. And I'm fortunate here to be a part of an executive leadership team that's all in on that. It starts at the top with our CEO, Rick McKinney, amazing leader, understands the importance of some of the disruptive technologies that are coming and what it can mean to our business. So for me, that was definitely a signal. And when I saw that opportunity, it's one that, one of those signals that I had to listen to. And then, of course, before moving on from a role, one of the things that I always focus on is making sure that the next leaders and the teams that are behind me have enduring frameworks that I've shared with them, processes. My goal as a leader is always to make sure that the leaders that are behind me can lead. They don't need me to lead. They've built enough muscle on their own that they can take all of that and grow it and mature it through the mentorship or the processes or frameworks that you've been. And I think leading well is really setting up that organization, and you want that organization that you're leading to thrive as well. Growth doesn't mean severing ties to me. One of the things I've learned in my career is it is the exact opposite. Just like Mojgan, who I have kept in touch with, and now we're working in a wonderful different capacity too, keep the bridges intact, because those relationships often will become the catalyst for future collaboration and innovation more than anything. If you look at Mojgan and I today, we still collaborate in the roles that we're in, and then she's in the different role as a board member, also helping to bring an understanding of technology to that board level, and that's of huge importance.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Moshe Lefebvre. Travelers runs operations and technology and a whole bunch of other stuff there now. And this is just so indicative of a small world, right? You were peers at Liberty. Now she's on your board. And, before it was announced that you were joining Unum, I was talking with her. She goes, she wouldn't tell me. She goes, wait till you hear the new, she like, this person. I'm like, tell me. She goes, nope, I'm not going to tell you. You got to wait.
It is. It was a little bit of what is that game? The 6 degrees of separation, because I also did not realize that Mojgan was on the board. And when Rick had reached out to me about the opportunity, and then I learned that Mojgan was on the board, and I said, wow, this is okay. That's a big plus for me. And then I also learned that one of my prior business leaders, when had been at USAA, even 2 moves prior in my career, Martha Liebert was the actual chief investment officer here. So I came in from not knowing anyone, I thought, to actually Rick having 2 automatic references for me from people that were directly in executive leadership positions tied to Unum Group.
Yeah. Such a
So
small
it's a
world.
small world. It's a small world.
It's so cool because this year we're starting off really big. Keith Ferrazzi, first guest, right? Wrote the book, Never Eat Alone. Talked a lot about these topics, right? Connecting,
Yes, and I am a
networking.
huge fan of Keith's, and he's amazing. So read his books. They're fantastic.
Totally, yeah. So, you second here, and now Moskin, as you know, is going to be next. And so,
And I'm a
uh,
Moscone fan, of course. That's given.
yeah, well, she probably anticipates maybe one of her mystery questions at this point. So
Yes, I think she probably does.
uh, Sheila, one of the great leaders of our profession, Andy Grove, CEO of Intel, wrote the book On the Paranoid Survive. But one of Andy's great quotes talks about the great leaders who had that ability to zoom in and zoom out, right? To see the big picture while also having the ability to dive into the details, that matter. And so you're known for doing this exceptionally, exceptionally well. And so how do you personally navigate that balance between that strategic altitude, operational detail, and maybe share a moment, a story,
Sure,
through the
absolutely.
lens, well, that made a difference.
Sure, I can absolutely. And I'll even relate it to coming into this role. I've been here at Unum Group now for 8 months. I am familiar with the industry. I was previously in the same sector, and I've been now a 4-time insurance and financial services CIO. And I think it's really important to have a lens of zoom in and zoom out. I think you get that perspective. And I love that book, by the way, that book Zoom. If you haven't ever used it, it's a wonderful pictorial view of getting perspective as you see things differently. And that's what zoom in, zoom out does for you. So definitely get that book and use it with your team. When I first joined Unum, I dedicated my first 90 days to really nothing more than a listening campaign, listening, learning, observing. And then I was really looking to immerse myself in the company, the culture. I was also paying attention to where and how we actually anchored our technology initiatives back to the business. That's one of my big things to ensure that we were executing on what matters most. And so from that high level listening tour, I was able to focus and understand our strategic vision, which is the zoom out, right? Really starting at the top side, meeting all these senior executive leaders, understanding what's important to them, how they were thinking about transforming the company, what details then would be more important to me to start thinking about how do I kind of prioritize that to turn that into actions for our technology. And then from there, I came back inside the technology organization and started really asking those questions at that next level down, really deep diving in all the way down to technology architecture and understanding where we might have gaps. And that did help me to arrive at a vision of some of the foundational things that we needed to put in place to help to anchor back to those strategic visions that I heard about when I was meeting with those senior level executives. And so I think it's a perfect marrying of both. And anyone that sits in this seat, I always say you have to be like a mini CEO of your business. You really have to be able to do that zoom out. You have to think strategically. You have to zoom in and take those strategic plans into actions for technology. For example, one of the things that we're focusing on here is we had a gap in really understanding the architectural disposition of all of our application portfolio. But instead of thinking about that in terms of technology, I challenged the team to start thinking about it in terms of what's the value of that capability to our business first. So ask that as the first question. And then the second question is ask now, is it meeting the need and is it serving the purpose? So that is how it helps to tie back. So it's important to anchor back technology strategy to the core business priorities. And then those operational details need to align to that. We're focused on, for example, a multi-year planning view that will align to our business priorities so that we can make investment decisions around the criticality of our capabilities and our applications in our suite and align that to our business priorities, our investment strategy at the top side.
Yeah, you've already given us an indication of the intentionality you have around people. Um, and I'm just curious, these are challenging times for our folks too, right? And so kind of an inflection point. And when you're in your town halls, your one-on-ones, your skip levels, when you're speaking to future talent, how do you message the reality of disruption? How do you encourage them at the same time?
I think one of the things that I see, of course, we all hear it. With the invent of these emerging technologies, some jobs are going to go away and be replaced. It's going to create some new jobs. And I think there's going to be a lot of what I like to call jobs augmentation. So it's definitely going to change the way a lot of people work, everything from engineering roles all the way to if you're in the contact center, for example. So I do think individuals, regardless of where you're at in any business today, you need to be thinking about how are you going to be like a chameleon and adapt to some of the changes that are coming. So I do think that the workforce definitely feels kind of the brunt of that disruption that's being introduced. And as leaders, it's our job, I believe, to ensure that our folks are as well equipped as they can be to manage through those changing environments, particularly with the advent of AI and other emerging technologies. So I'm committed to being very transparent with our teams about what I'm thinking about that. As a company, we're also doing the same thing, as well as offering ways for them to prepare. So, for example, this year in my organization on the engineering front, I have challenged my application leader to have a goal for all of our engineers to be AI enabled. So be able to leverage code generation with AI as part of your job, right? So that's going to be a big piece of driving more productivity. Now, we have far more work to do than we have people in seats today. Of course, we're managing the fiscal side of the company as well. So we're always going to be conscientious of how much we're investing. And my hope is that we will be able to get more done with the same investment that we have in the same amount of people. So we actually messaged this very message with my entire organization during my recent town hall in December. So it was very transparent. We always have Q&A and open conversation. The other thing I would say here at Unum, we're also evaluating, for example, all of our workforce competencies. So I'm really looking at a view of our as is and to be. If you think about our current state, future state views of skills, that's something that we all have to be thinking about. And I will tell you, we don't have future state defined 100% yet. So we are looking at more of less of these skills. And then we will start developing targeted learning pathways for that. I'm working with my HR and PNC teams to help to do that, to assist employees to acquire some of those essential skills in the future, for example.
Yeah. So this is that scale. This is a global scale, right? As you're talking. And when you and I chat offline, you're always bragging on your 2,000 colleagues there, right? The great work they're doing, technologists that are cloud, AI engineering, automation, customer experience, right? So give us the view, like you can look ahead and know how this team is going to impact Unum's future.
Yes. And so I'll start off by saying this goes back to the team sport. So the work that we do every day is serving our business. And so we have to know everything that we do aligns back to driving the outcomes and the value that our leadership team and our executive leadership team is looking for. One of the focus areas for us is, of course, driving value. And that time to value is something that we're really focusing on this year. So I have an amazing, wonderful team. I have what I call an expanded team because of the team sport, working with, for example, our strategy team or our CX team or my finance partners or my comms partners. We have a whole village that helps to achieve what we have to achieve as the one Unum team, I would say. My team in engineering and product they're consistently pushing the needle and asking how can we do things faster and better. And that's a mindset and a culture that, of course, is important as you think about innovation of the future. My organization includes, for example, Chief Technology Office. We have a focus on journeys, which is the investment or change side of our business. I have a global information security team. And I also have a dedicated team focused on incubation. It's called the Digital Incubator and Applied AI team, the IAA. That's where all of our AI and what I call blue sky innovation sits. So they solve those big, unproven blue sky problems and opportunities, and then data. So that's how my team is structured. All of those teams work together to ensure that we're focused on things like improving our applications, our technology stack. We're serving our business partners, making sure that we're prioritizing the transformational change against the key business priorities, and then driving innovation through new and emerging technology solutions like AI, for example. And then we're also focusing on making sure that we're preparing and looking across the end-to-end view of our business and technology, working in partnership to drive value by looking at the full value chain of work that we deliver. so that we can build on kind of our roadmaps for the future, really, and make sure that we're not just plugging the hole, but we're really reimagining how we're looking at our business end to end.
Fascinating. I would not be a great prosecuting attorney if I did not get people who could vouch for what you just shared. And so I've got two more mystery questioners. Let's see what they have to say about what you just told us. So here's the first one.
Hey, Sheila, I have a question for you about talent management. I've always seen you as a leader who's able to attract and retain really great talent. What is it that you look for in talent? What attributes do people have that resonate with you where you know they're going to be a great fit for the organization and they're going to deliver at a high value?
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's amazing. Is that Matt Keene?
That is Mr. Matt Keene. Yes.
Oh, Matt Keene. Fantastic. So love the talent question. So Matt and I have talked about this a lot because I think we're kindred spirits as it relates to this. You have to have the right people on the bus, right? It's really important. So for me, a couple of things come to mind. First, my advice is technical skills, and this is coming from someone who is an engineer, okay? Technical skills that you learn have an expiration date. While
Good.
learning agility doesn't. That's a big thing for me. So I look for people who are curious, who are continuously seeking out new skills development, who have an outside the box approach to thinking with a growth mindset. And then equally important to me, being an engineer on the technical acumen side is your business fluency. I think you've heard that come through in what I have shared already. Understanding the context, asking why, putting the customer lens on. So stepping in the shoes, that try on model, try on the lens in the shoes of the customer and understanding the outcomes that are expected. And then, of course, having both, it's a both and for me, a strategic mindset and a bias for execution. In these roles, you have to have both. It's not a or, it's a both and. It's a balance, and you have to have an awareness of when to lean in strongly on one versus the other. And then foundational, being trustworthy and collaborative. Those are foundational traits that are enduring for anyone.
So helpful. It's people are going to find it wild, but you and I remember the day when you could come into this profession, you could learn a technical skill like
Mhm.
COBOL, and you
Yep.
could ride that way for an entire career. And
You could.
gosh, but what a great time we live in, Sheila, where we can
It
be
is.
doing new things all the time, and those are learning agility. So thank you, Matt. One of the most brilliant people I know in this space. When it comes to data AI, I encourage people to go read. He's been publishing some things on LinkedIn, so go read Matt's stuff. Really, really good. Well, that's one good set of evidence, but I wanted a second witness to prove this out, Sheila. So I've got one more here who's a graduate of the Shelia Anderson School of Leadership. So
Oh,
check it out.
Hi, Sheila. One of the things people consistently say about you is that you are a magnet for top talent because you lead with such heart, authenticity, and vision. At the same time, you are equally known for holding people to very high standards and having the hard conversations when they're needed. As someone who has witnessed this firsthand, your transformative leadership style influenced me and my career trajectory. Can you talk about how you balance being the kind of leader people want to follow with being the leader they need in moments of accountability? And what advice would you give emerging leaders who are trying to develop that same balance in their careers?
okay. So that is one of my fan favorites, Miss Kelly Cage, who has absolutely been, when I talked about one of those things in my career, those moments that matter most, Kelly's a perfect example of that. She was on my team at Liberty Mutual. We've stayed in touch, we've mentored, and Kelly herself is now in her first CIO role. So I can't be more proud of her. So I have to put that plug in first. So
No,
for
Kelly.
me,
Yeah,
yes,
great
yes.
leader.
She's an amazing leader. So very thankful to have her ask this question. It really starts to me with truly caring about the people that you work with and invest in the relationships, and you build that trusted relationship. And so when you have those moments where you're in the fighting ring together, you have to anchor back to that and know that this person has my back and they're making decisions. I can follow that and I trust that they're going to support me through that. I think taking accountability goes hand in hand with that. So things aren't always going to be perfect, having what I would say those crucial conversations with candor matters, being able to do that. And always for me, above all things, transparency matters. Help people to understand the why, tell the why, bring people along. And then, as a leader, you have to stay close enough, set the vision, but then you have to be able to go close or zoom in when you need to. And if your team is struggling, be available to help remove the roadblocks and help to guide them.
So good. So we definitely have proven this out to be true on many levels. So thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Matt, for those questions. And Sheila, I'm going to date myself one more time. So there used to be a show, you may or may not remember it, called Columbo. It was a detective show. And this kind of rumpled coat, soft voice. He always looked like he was scatterbrained, and
Yeah.
he'd ask people questions, and he'd be kind of like walking away. And then he would turn and say, just one more thing. And that was always the question that just cracked the case wide open. So in true Columbo fashion, Sheila, I have one more thing. So listen up.
Automation and AI has been at the forefront of really helping operational areas increase productivity and become far more efficient than they've been in past years. How do you believe cross-functional teams can effectively continue to collaborate to ensure that technology and processes are aligned in a way in which it maximizes both the customer experience and the business outcomes?
Oh, wow. This is a great question, too. So I'll share a bit about what we're doing here at Unum. We're investing heavily in technology, of course. So it's very important. Our technology, it can inspire bold thinking, by the way, but we shouldn't ever just use it for technology's sake. I think success still comes from the old adage of balancing people, process, and technology to accelerate business value. And that requires partnership, going back to the relationship that I talked about previously. And for me, it's really meaningful to partner and make sure that you have a strong relationship with your business partners to help them own the vision, help us to define what problems we're jointly solving together. And when they do, that accountability for that outcomes will come, and we'll be able to manage through those shifts in technology with the business. And I like to think about the framework that I use is actually very simple. The old, how do you make those decisions together? The two in a box adage. So when you put your like minds between business and technology together, it means you're bringing both of them to the table, working as a team, steering towards the greatest value. And that helps us to align our investments with business outcomes and deliver that end-to-end value.
So Sheila, let me go back. Who was that?
That was Andrew Walker. So Andrew and I, it's kind of an interesting story. So Andrew is our Chief Customer Operations Officer here at Unum Group. He actually joined shortly after I did. And it was really interesting when you have about these 6 degrees of separation, because Andrew and I almost crossed paths, but we did not at my earliest CIO role at USAA. I was the CIO for the property and casualty company there, and Andrew came behind me, I believe, the year after I left. And he was the operating officer running a lot of the business operations. When it was announced that Andrew was joining Unum Group, my phone was blowing up with all of these shared connections that we had that said, what in the world is going on at this company called Unum Group? Because they're getting 2 of these leaders that we absolutely loved working with at 2 different times at USAA. So.
And for both of you, what a great part of your journey, right? Back in those days at USAA, be able to come back together. So I love it. Well, thank you, Andrew. I know you've got a very busy schedule. Many thanks to very special person and your team. You mentioned your extended team, Cynthia, who helped to facilitate that. So she gets all the credit. I'm not going to give her a last name because everyone's going to want to hire her, but Cynthia is a rock star. Sheila, we're at that point where I want to pivot to the, you and I are all about doing things for our profession, giving back, right? And, we started this Tech for Good scholarship years ago. And to our surprise, we woke up this year and it's surpassed $500,000 of commitment. So it's just one of those things where, you start small, right? That little ripple in the water, that drop, and it gets bigger, bigger, and bigger. So you know how this works, right? You get to name a STEM nonprofit that you admire, you respect, you're involved in, and they'll get a scholarship to our 9-month TechLX Leadership Program. So anybody come in mind off the top of your head?
Yes, Anita B. Org for me is one that's top of mind, invests a lot in tech education and supporting women in technology. For those of you that don't know as well, one of the most highly attended network events for women in technology is the Grace Hopper. So check it out. Grace Hopper does a lot of support for women in technology, then sponsors also scholarships for young women coming out and giving them interest in STEM out of high school as well. So a lot of awareness that'll help to encourage women to pursue the STEM field in the future.
That's amazing. Anita B has not been recognized. So I'm really glad that we have a chance to shine the light on them. And again, I'm going to date myself, but Grace Hopper was Rear Admiral Grace Hopper,
Rear
right?
Admiral, go read up on Grace Hopper. All these amazing women that you don't even realize and the things that she achieved in early work in technology as well. It's just amazing when you really start to educate yourself on it.
Well, Sheila, we're kind of winding down here. Before I call the members of the jury back into the courtroom, I want to thank you for sharing, for teaching, just for helping us all become better leaders through your journey. And again, I always do this, but I want people to go back and listen again, take notes, because it's just you could build your leadership playbook based on what you just shared. And so, I want to thank your special guest for helping me prosecute your case, and hope it wasn't too painful for you to be in the hot seat.
Oh, it wasn't. That was a little bit of a walk down memory lane with some really special, amazing people. So I really appreciate them making the time to ask the questions.
Well, with that, I'm going to welcome the jury back into the courtroom one last time. Let's face it, the evidence is overwhelming. From her early client-facing days through her 4 transformative CIO roles, today's testimony makes one thing clear. The case for Shelia Anderson's exceptional leadership journey is open and shut. We've seen the rare trifecta. I talked about it early. She showed us what this looks like in practicality. She's a leader with the head for complexity, the heart for people, and the spine for those hard moments. And the strongest proof didn't even come from Sheila. It came from her eyewitnesses, peers, former bosses, rising leaders, all pointing to the same verdict. Greatness leaves a trail. We call it a legacy, and Sheila's is unmistakable. And if you want more, you don't have to wait for long, because we're going to collaborate next on an article on CIO.com, my CIO Whispers page. It's an article featuring really unpacking Sheila's blueprint for architecting the future while modernizing the past. It's a masterclass every leader should read. So check it out, share it out. And with that, thanks so much. We will see you next time.